Hello everyone, my name is Rochelle Innocent and I'm the founder and CEO of Project Purpose. Welcome to our channel. Our community is focused on fostering the intellectual and character development in children. We do this through our parent-child workshops that are focused on 4 themes: autonomy, self-efficacy, compassion, and self-concept, in order to cultivate grit, perseverance, and resilience in each child. At Project Purpose, our overarching mandate is to renew and rebuild family, community, and relationships. Our different social media platforms provide us with an opportunity to have discussions and to create space on all topics that relate to family, community, and relationships with ourselves as well as with others, with a primary focus on mental health and education. More precisely, the ways that the institutions of mental health and education play a role and have played a role in our societies at large. These discussions and debates provide us with an opportunity to think critically about what needs to change within these structures for us to live up to our bold slogan, support, protect, and empower each child through youth-focused development, better known as leadership in juvenescence. We recognize that in valuing our children's leadership potential, this also translates as recreating and co-creating environments, both socially and politically, that will enable our children to thrive. For those of you who are particularly keen on the topic, we also write thought pieces every other Sunday. We have one scheduled to drop this upcoming Sunday, so be sure to meander over to the website and check out our online content. Now, if it is the case that you are looking for a listening alternative, well, we're available on 12 different podcast platforms for your listening leisure, and we've provided you with access to the links in the description down below. Now, as is the convention, be sure to subscribe, hit that post notification bell so that you are aware of every time we post. And of course, if you like these conversations and you want to keep them going, like, comment, and share this segment. Let's get into it. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And today our topic of discussion is on education. And on the conversation of education, we're going to be talking about the education that starts at home. And I'm going to give you some practical tenets of spirituality as it translates for me personally, because I do think that these are some elements that were really fundamental in my upbringing. And I saw that you really liked the anecdotal videos that I put out last week. So I figured, why not keep the theme of anecdotal advice or anecdotal tidbits of wisdom coming. So when it comes to some spiritual tenets to keep in mind, I have 3 that I'm going to provide in this video, and I think take it with a grain of salt. I think all of us, our idea of spirituality is informed by so many different things, and I think that our journey and our experiences are going to let us know in what direction we're going to head towards, and what beliefs we keep and what beliefs we let go of. I want to come in here and talk a little bit about some of my fundamental beliefs. So I mentioned very early on that I am of Haitian descent. Well, I'm Canadian, of course, but both of my parents come from Haiti. And I also mentioned that I grew up in a really very religious, very conservative household. So while I'm not religious and while I've never been to Haiti, I'm definitely born and bred Canadian. A lot of my spirituality is obviously informed by these settings, informed by my parents' culture, as well as informed by the cultural norms that were inherent in the religious settings that I grew up in. And while no one can call me religious now, I think my spirituality, my beliefs, my values, really, if I think about them and I take a couple steps backwards, they are a juxtaposition of the things that I was taught religiously, some of it, and also the things that I was taught culturally. So a lot of how I practice my spirituality really does play into some of the tenets or some of the beliefs and the traditions that are traditionally very Haitian. So here are 3 tenets that were part of my upbringing that I'm going to share with you. And again, take them with a grain of salt, but they are tried and truths that I live by. So one tenet that is really very important is the power of intention. So I think growing up in a Haitian household, there was a lot to do with navigating the intentions of other people, recognizing that a lot of intention is hidden, right? So if it is the case that you weren't sure about someone's intention, that you weren't going to put yourself in a position where you were exposing yourself to harm or to receiving the negative intention from someone. And I think that some of this in different cultures translates as like the evil eye, like translates as like a jealous gaze or the evil gaze. Like the way I thought about it, or the way I received that information, I understood it was like just intentions. Be mindful that not everyone has the right intentions for you, and don't assume intentionality. Like, don't assume that you know someone's intentions by the way that they're showing up, and always just be mindful of protecting yourself from bad intentions of other people. And I think that that is so characteristically Haitian, because I don't really see other people talk or discuss about intention. And the way that we navigate intentions is really being very mindful of personal and public spaces. So Haitians, based on my experience of my parents and my own extended family, very, very mindful about how you protect yourself from bad intentions in personal and public spaces by just making sure that you're cognizant of where it is you stand, of your own intentionality, that you're not openly receiving everything that's kind of being sent your way in an energetic sort of sense. So I think that that's where religion sort of plays a role in it. You know, you're always making sure that you're keeping yourself safe and protected, either with prayers or with blessings or with affirmations, or sort of how it's evolving now. But you always just want to be mindful that you're always walking in a web of intentionality, right? Like, even if you're walking down the street, everyone has their own intentions that they're driving by, and intentions carry energy. And it's just very important to be mindful of the energy that doesn't serve you, and not to internalize that energy in the exchanges that we have with people on a day-to-day basis. Which brings me to my second point, my second tenet, which is energy exchange. And energy exchange is a really core fundamental that I grew up with in my household. And again, I got the Haitian tradition of it, as well as the religious tradition of it. So very, very cognizant about when it is that I'm taking in energy and who it is that I'm taking energy from, and also the kind of energy that I'm sending out. And a lot of people call this karma, but it's also like in the little things, right? So energy can be as simple as something that we eat. And I've always been of the mindset, I've always been taught that when you're eating, it's kind of like a reconnection with earth. There's something very spiritual about eating food and breaking bread, right? But it's also very important, you know, there's that saying that we've heard before in the past where, you know, this food was made with lots of love. Like, you can tell when the food that you're eating has been prepared with care and consideration, which also then follows that there are some meals that maybe aren't prepared with care and consideration, and you always just want to make sure that you reset the intention of your food before you eat it. And that is very Haitian, but also something that carries in a lot of religious traditions, which is why they bless the food, they pray over the food. But a lot of people don't realize that it's actually a way of making sure that if there was bad intention or evil intent placed into the preparing of the food, if someone was preparing the food with bad juju or with bad vibes, then you can break that and make sure that you're not internalizing that energy as you're internalizing the food. So it's very important, but also very important to choose when not to partake, right? Like, if a plate of food is being put in front of you and you feel off or iffy about eating it, then don't eat it at all. Don't force yourself to eat it if it is the case that you're not feeling like it's a good idea. And that's like something that happens very rarely, right? But if ever a plate of food is placed in front of you and you're feeling off, even though it looks fine, it's because you're kind of getting a sense as to the intentionality behind the meal, right? And I think that this is something, again, that I have received so much education on, not just based on my Haitian culture, but also as part of my religious upbringing, because I was raised very religiously, and there was just a lot of conversations around the energy exchange with food, but also about the kind of food we put into our body. So that's the third tenet that I want to talk about today, is like the kinds of food we eat is so important, because food doesn't just nourish our bodies, but it fuels us to be mentally aware, to be emotionally put together. Like, not eating and eating has an impact on not just our physical state of being, but our mental, emotional state of being. So it's really important that when you're eating, you're being selective in what will nourish you, and not just the physical you, but what will nourish you spiritually and emotionally as well. And just recognizing that every interaction that we have with the world around us has a deeper, more spiritual meaning than a lot of us have been taught, right? And so all of this I've carried with me. I'm so mindful of what it is that I'm eating. I've always said, like, food is function before it's pleasure. And so I want to make sure that I'm eating the kinds of food that give me clarity, that give me the opportunity to concentrate, that give me the opportunity to focus. And food really can do that for you. It's not just about giving you energy, and to give you the opportunity to have strength to get through the day, but it can also bring a lot of mental clarity as well. And also like emotionality, I am someone, like when I am emotional, food can be a big comfort for me. Or if it is the case that I'm looking to feel grounded, food is also a great comfort for me. Like food is something that has a really deep impact on who we are as physical beings, but also as mental and spiritual beings. So I think that there's so little discussed about the power of food and the relationship and how significant it is by way of the relationship that we have with food. And I think that it's important to just talk about that when it comes to the food that you choose to eat, or with whom you choose to eat, or from whom you choose to eat, all of that has like a spiritual impact. And it's just important that we think about the intentionality, we think about motivations, and we reset that before we feed and partake, so that we're not eating any intentions or any motivations that are not set or established within the right frame of mind. And I've told all of you, I'm a yogi. I consider myself a deeply, deeply spiritual person. And as part of that, I do fast intermittently, but my fasting is much more part of my lifestyle. It's not something that I'll do every now and again. It's something that I do on a routine. And fasting for the purposes of like spiritual clarity, or for cleansing, and for like helping your body to reset, it's a very spiritual activity, right? So eating food reconnects us to kind of our physical form. It helps us ground ourselves, but abstaining from food for spiritual reasons like fasting, it helps us align more to our spiritual selves, right? And I think that I'm of the opinion, even now, despite the fact that I'm not religious, that we still are three-part beings. I do see myself as mental, spiritual, or emotional and physical. And I see my identity translates very clearly across those three spectrums. And so when I think about food, I think about how food supports me physically, but also how it will support me mentally and how it helps me emotionally. And I think it's really important to keep that in mind. And the same goes with abstaining from food. And I think that it's just so important that we recognize that how much or how little we do really plays into our ability to master ourselves. And I think this life is all about self-mastery as well. So when we think about energy exchange, when we think about intention, when we think about food, when we think about how it is that we treat the engagements and interactions that we have on a day-to-day basis, and see things beyond surface level, and always operate with the intent of making sure that we're preserving ourselves, and that we're taking care of ourselves, and that we're not unduly exposing ourselves to harm. However our culture teaches us that, or maybe some of the religious teachings teach us that, that's education that starts at home. So I wanted to like scratch the surface of this conversation, see how well it sits with all of you, because I've never really been super anecdotal about the conversations that I have on here. I try to be as objective as possible, but I find that like the anecdotal videos do have high degree of reception. So I was like, okay, well, let me give something else that's more personal and less objective or academic. But that was it for this video right here, but definitely not all. Now, before letting you go, I would be remiss if I didn't let you know that we will be going live at least twice a month, every month for the foreseeable future on our Facebook page. So definitely be sure to tune in. Now, these events are paid events, so if you do see yourself participating in our community on an ongoing basis, then I do suggest that you take a look at one of our package plans. Yes, so we do offer package plans over and above our live events, as well as access to webinars and workshops, largely focused on self-mastery over and above these events. So definitely be sure to check us out. Join in on the Game Changer community, being part of the change that you want to see, allowing us a small role to play in your journey. So we are on the road to 1K. We invite all of you to give us a follow, not just here, but across all of our social media platforms. Leave a comment, and I look forward to seeing you all shortly. We'll talk to you soon.